74 million, 35 million. Those are the total hardware sales as of the beginning of this year for both the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, respectively. These numbers would indicate that the PlayStation 4 is definitely the more popular and more successful console as it has the biggest install base. But why is there such a huge 2-to-1 gap between the two biggest consoles on the market? That is the big question, and the answer is more often than not found by looking at what has been the savior or the downfall of pretty much every single video game console ever created: console exclusives. In a generation replete with the non-exclusive, available on all systems game, many people are impatiently waiting for the next big system seller. After all, that's why a lot of people buy consoles to begin with. You would think this would be the #1 priority for any console maker. But just as it happens to be, the 2018 lineup of Microsoft Xbox One exclusives can be counted on 3 fingers: State of Decay, Crackdown 3, and funny enough, Sea of Thieves. As a fan of the Xbox brand, I've only got one thing to say: are you kidding me? We know one of those games was a No Man's Sky, so I hope the others are 2 of the best games I'll play this year, because that is not a lineup that can remotely not just contend with, but dominate Sony in 2018. Today we're going to explore the dangerous dilemma Microsoft has created for itself in this industry. Welcome to Xbox One's Dangerous Dilemma, a curious case of when exclusive video games just get forgotten. If you jump into a time machine right now and travel back into the past, what will you find that is absolutely still here today in this industry? You will discover, of course, gaming's most constant star out in the sky: rivalries. It started off as Nintendo versus Sega and then Nintendo versus Sony. Microsoft came in a few years later as Nintendo branched off into the specialty market of family-friendly games and technology like the Wii. It has been 17 years since the release of the original Xbox back in 2001. Since that very day, the gaming landscape has most certainly been an arena of Microsoft versus Sony, with Nintendo doing its own thing and the PC always being off in its own little world on the side. The existence of multiple console makers has been enabled by the pursuit of better technology and, of course, the most important thing: exclusive video games. Even though consoles get more powerful every year, comparing same generations of hardware often ends up with the same dilemma. They're about always the same level of quality. There's only so big of a jump we can make, given the constraints of offering an affordable device that is built in with limited physical space in the form of a console. Usually Microsoft has an advantage of features, such as a now defunct Kinect or by connecting your basketball viewing experience to your Xbox, but Sony's consoles are often a hair more powerful. But upon closer inspection, it usually ends up a wash because the average person isn't going to notice a difference in power between, let's say, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4. So the real differentiation between consoles is most certainly exclusive video games. It has always been like this. From Nintendo to Sony to Microsoft, they are all vying for the rights to feature the next big game that no one else can get. It's these exclusives that bring in sales, as the previously discussed differences in tech don't mean much when they're so close to one another. So yeah, it's about the games. Many people believe that console exclusives are good for this industry as they spur competition among the big 3 to produce and feature unique, you can't get this anywhere else games. Most gamers can often only afford a single console every generation, so console makers end up in a quality and innovation race to find and develop the newest, most unique, and special video games. They have to, or else they'd be driven out of town for sitting on their asses and being lazy. Thus, we have 3 huge companies working around the clock to improve their gaming experiences, and this is a good thing for everybody. On the surface, this system seems to be bad for the consumer on the other side though, who only has access to one console, as he or she is missing out on the exclusive video games from the other side of the gaming world. This may be true, but in return, that individual gets to have companies compete for their business in the only way that they can and the only way that matters, making better games than everybody else, and isn't that what we all want? Without competition and rivalries, there would be no need to innovate, as the homogenization would create no incentive to produce a better game. So exclusivity is great for advancing games through competition and pushing the industry forward, which brings us directly back to the topic at hand. For a long time, Microsoft delivered great exclusive titles like Halo, Forza, and of course Gears of War. But today it's often a hard case to say that Microsoft has better gaming experiences than Sony. Beyond those 3 franchises, Microsoft doesn't really have a lot else. You can point to Crackdown and now Sea of Thieves, which turned out to be a bomb, but honestly, what else is out there? As a longtime Xbox fan and a huge Halo player, I do find myself in the quandary of continuing to invest in a company that seems to have forgotten about the gamer's first mentality. With not much in sight for 2018, does Xbox One have an exclusive gaming problem? Are people who decided to buy an Xbox One now regretting it as they see so many exclusive Sony games being released on the other side of the fence? Sony's 2018 lineup is pretty solid and it's full of pretty exciting games. This year we're going to see the release of The Last of Us 2, that's going to be a big one, God of War, Spider-Man, Dreams, and of course Detroit Become Human, in addition to several others that are being created by reputable studios. Just about every one of these games is looking pretty good, especially when you consider what could have been their competition from Microsoft, the cancelled Fable Legends, Ion, and of course, Scalebound. This man right here, Phil Spencer, is the Executive Vice President of Gaming at Microsoft. He's in charge of getting Microsoft exclusive games into your hands. But it's been a challenge to find those killer apps on the Xbox One in the last few years. In a time where Sony launches Horizon Zero Dawn, Persona 5, and exclusive console rights to Nier Automata, the competing Microsoft lineup during the time nearly faded into oblivion with the disappointing Halo 5, ReCore, and Sunset Overdrive if anyone remembers that game. They simply couldn't compete, and there wasn't else much to play if you were looking for exclusive games on your Xbox One. It's surprising, as the history of Xbox shows a completely different story. The original Xbox had around 65 exclusive or console-exclusive games in its 4-year run. That is 16 exclusive games every single year, give or take a few decimal points. And don't forget about the Xbox 360 and how it revolutionized low-budget exclusive games with its indie games program and of course the Summer Arcade. What has happened to the focus on the game with the Xbox One? There really hasn't been many exclusives, and even the ones that have been released, the big ones anyway, haven't really been that great. With a $130 billion cash piggy bank waiting to be cracked open, Microsoft has no excuse for falling this far behind Sony in providing high-quality exclusive games for their platform. Without a huge roster of dedicated games, and I say this with sadness as a huge Xbox fan from the very beginning, the Xbox One is simply a slightly underpowered, less popular version of a PlayStation 4. Where are the blockbuster exclusive Xbox One games that they need to compete with the PlayStation 4's killer apps? Well, you can ask the man himself. Spencer has gone on record stating that Microsoft is going to focus on both exclusives and making their own software this year, but I have yet to see this mentioned again by Microsoft. I hope that they have a plan because the Xbox One definitely needs some more love. And with the ability to play in 4K, it deserves better games. The technology is there and it's begging for a better lineup. The Xbox One is feeling stale today, and finding games that will energize the system is going to be the biggest challenge Microsoft will face this year. But with how well the PlayStation 4 is doing and the great year the Switch had with Breath of the Wild, will the Xbox One simply be left in the dust?